Hi students, I'm Una.
And I'm Scott.
I'm a UK OET teacher.
I'm also an OET teacher from the UK.
We've been teaching students to pass their exams for many years.
And now we're excited to help you pass your exams too.
This is the Swoosh English OET Podcast.
Let's get started.
Are you struggling with your OET exam preparation?
Are you unsure how to reach your target score of a grade A or B? Let Swoosh English help you get there.
Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click the link in the description for your free OET complete guide to writing.
Everything you need to know to pass your OET writing step by step. Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click on the link in the description below.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another podcast here at Swoosh English. My name is Una.
And my name is Scott.
And today we are focusing on the OET exam, the reading section in particular, in which we're going to get into detail in Part C. So I hope that you listened to our previous podcast on Part A and Part B of the reading section of the exam. And today we're going to get into Part C.
It would make sense for everyone to go through this examination part in sequence. Start with Part A and then B and C. So please look at those podcasts first. But if not, feel free to join in today and feel about all the wonders of Part C.
Of course, we will get do a slight overview on the reading section in general, so don't be too concerned.
As we always do, of course. So, Una, how do you feel about Part C of OET reading?
So, a lot of my students do tend to have more difficulty with Part C. I think, it has those longer texts up to 850 words, and of course, lots of complex language, and they need to make sure that they've been reading medical journals, things like this, in English.
Precisely.
Maybe they read them in their own language.
It is probably like the biggest test of overall reading skills with this, given the length and complexity of the text, as well as the actual exercises that have to be done. There's a lot of opinionated language, a lot of assessing of writer's opinion and attitude as well, and that can obviously make it a lot more ambiguous in terms of what you're looking for as well. So if you don't have that confidence, or you hate ambiguity, you think, Part C, this is quite a tricky part of the test.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of students do say Part A too. I'm always hearing Part A or Part C, and I think Part A is because of that, time restriction. Yeah. It's really the time management in that section.
Basically, it's all pretty horrible and difficult, isn't it?
That's it. No, don't say that. We're positive. We can all do this.
I'm only joking.
So should we do a quick overview then of, the reading section, how long students have to spend on it, what time they have?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely. So, as we've previously mentioned in our previous podcast, that there are two sections to the reading examination. You have Part A and then Part B and C. Part A was only 15 minutes and it's a separate paper. Your dead paper is then taken away from you. Whereas Part C is part of the Part B paper and it comes in at 45 minutes in total.
Yes, so you have 45 minutes for Part B and Part C. Of course, the reading section of the exam is 42 questions in total. And in order to get a B, you're really looking at 30 out of 42, aren't you?
Precisely, yeah. So in order to get a B, aka 350 on the OET scale, which would equate with IELTS 7, and it's a score most of you guys are needing to get, it would be 30 out of 42 questions right, and that's in parts A, B, and C. So it doesn't matter if you obviously don't do so well in part A, but you do fantastic in parts B and C, you could still hit that 30 mark and get that score you need, which is important to know.
And then in part A, you have 20 questions. In part B, you have 12 questions. 6 questions. 6 questions. And then in part C, you have
8 questions in total.
8 questions per
make
text.
It 16.
Yes, so 16 questions. Great. Okay, so shall we get into this then?
All right.
What about Part C?
So let's have a look at Part C overall. So what exactly do you have to do? Well, there are 2 long texts as part of this OET section, and they vary in length between 700 and 850 words. So they are quite long and they are quite complex as well. There are 16 questions, 8 for each text, of which there are 4 multiple choice answers overall. And you think, hey, multiple choice is easy. Well, unfortunately, for this style of exercise, it's not that simple overall.
Yes. Of course, our students, like lots of students, have practice with multiple choice questions, in all areas of English as you are working on English, as you're, going through your studies. So you do have exposure to multiple choice questions at first. Yeah. And of course, in Part B, it's 3 answer multiple choice questions. And then in Part C, 4 answer multiple choice, 4 options.
There are also 3 different types of questions that you have to answer for this section, but we'll go into more detail about that very soon. Now, compared to Part B, in which the texts were assessing, obviously shorter in length, in which they were comparing about policy and procedures and implications on maybe a legal or health and safety aspect, which may be implemented in a healthcare situation or a workplace. Part C actually focuses more so on academic journals and reading. So they may be formed on websites, but they're not actually too difficult or too specific in their scope. They're more aimed at a general medical audience. So most of you people should have actually been able to, you've read articles like this before, hopefully in English, but I'm sure in your own language as part of your own day-to-day medical work.
Yeah, so it could be like progressive medical research, a case study, maybe something that has been recommended to you in order to just read a bit more around a particular area for some professional development, or just understanding how current medical practices are, evolving and changing all the time. So these kind of journals.
Updates. It could be stuff that you may have been assigned by your mentor or your boss or even other colleagues at work, just to keep you, as Una said, updated on current medical procedures in your field of study or profession.
Exactly. So I guess the most important thing is that even though you may have read these in your own language, it's important to start reading them in English. And of course, towards the end of this podcast today, we'll give you some really good resources as well, and medical journals and websites that you can go away and read in order to prepare for Part C.
In the same style of text that you would have in the actual OET examination as well. Therefore, you can familiarize yourself with the tone, the register, and the format of these styles of text. So,
definitely.
Progressive medical research, they may involve case studies, but they also don't focus on specific medical facts or even one area of academic research revolving a certain medicine as well. They're more general in their scope.
Exactly.
So keep that in mind.
Everyone is going to be able to understand that.
Regardless if you're a nurse, a doctor, a dentist, etc., for example.
All definitely. Right. Okay, so now shall we get into how we should approach this task, or how it's broken down, what kind of questions we come across in this exam?
So I'll start off by saying what OET have actually said themselves regarding what this task, what Part C actually assesses you on. It tests your ability to understand the explicit or implied meaning, as well as the attitude or opinion presented in a longer text. So key words there for that would be attitude, opinion, implications, and meaning. These are the sort of things that you're looking for, and the sort of sub-skills that you want to actually improve upon in this. So what skills are tested on for this part? Well, one, it's the gist, the overall meaning of a text, and how you can derive that meaning from your understanding of the text in a holistic manner. The main points, as well as the attitude. So what attitude has been taken by a certain...
by the writer.
By the writer, or even by someone who's given an opinion, as well as the specific opinions of people who have actually expressed their opinions in the text. There may be one, maybe two, there may be three, but they've actually given their own insight into how they feel about any given part of research.
Exactly. And it might not be explicitly said, of course, as we will get into more in this podcast.
It might be more implicitly said.
Yeah, so you're looking for your adjectives, your modal verbs, these kind of things. But of course, we'll get into that a bit more. And then what other kind of questions can we come across in the exam? So
you're also assessed on your ability to reference what a certain word may mean, or also what a phrase may mean within the context of a given text as well. So for example, for the referencing part, you might be given a pronoun. It could be it could be they, and you have to utilize your own knowledge of scanning the text and skimming the text to understand what that is meaning via the language in the given sentence or the surrounding information. Exactly. And then you may have a phrase. It could be idiomatic, for example, and you may understand what the idiom means, but you have to understand what that idiom means in context with the text overall as well. So once again, taking into your ability to skim and scan and to take reference and meaning from the text as a whole or a given section. Yeah, as well. And to really deduct meaning from a given phrase in relation to its context. Yes. So a lot of the time maybe this phrase isn't familiar to you. Maybe you don't really know it, but you're going to have to really be able to assess what it means, based on its wider context, the words around it in the sentence, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail. So these lexical reference style questions take up 2 out of the 8 questions in each section, whereas the other 6 are then they're detailed meaning or the opinion or the attitude of the writer or people within the text. Great. So that is a really good breakdown. Thank you for that, Scott. You're welcome. Of exactly the kind of questions that you're going to come across in Part C of the OET exam. So just to confirm, 8 questions for each text. And of course, there are 2 long texts.
So 16 questions in
16
total.
questions in total.
Yeah.
8 of those will be deducing the attitude, opinion, or attitude, for example, and the other 2 will. 6 of those.
Yes.
And then the other 2 will reference lexical reference, so pronouns or meanings via context for any given expression.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so when we first go into that exam and we look and we see our long texts and we probably, have a look at the next page and see all the questions, what should we do? What's the first thing? Well, the first thing is to skim the text, okay? So obviously we're going to take each text, one after the other, and the first thing is to skim the text.
Why do you think that's really important, to skim the text to begin with?
So it gives you a really good idea of the context of the questions, It gives you an overall meaning of what it's going to be about, what the topic is overall of that, longer text. So then whenever you start to go into reading the questions in more detail, you're not reading them completely in the dark. You have an idea.
Precisely.
You have an idea of what the text is about and what you're going to have to sort of answer questions on. So it's very similar to the skimming that you did in part A. In part A, when we recommended that straight away you start to skim those texts in order to get an idea, give you a general idea. Maybe this is something as well that you have actually read about before.
Precisely.
Maybe you have some background knowledge on this topic. So, of course, that will help you to really sort of work your way through the text. And it's a really good idea to, read the first sentence or skim the first sentence of each paragraph as well, because then perhaps that you need to go back to that paragraph for any given question. So skimming, of course, students can really work on this skill at home when they are reading, making sure that they are going through text really quickly, not looking at every single word, not trying to deduct the meaning from every word, just getting an overall idea, getting the gist by scanning your eyes over the text.
Fantastic. Great points there.
Are you struggling with your OET exam preparation?
Are you unsure how to reach your target score of a grade A or B? Let Swoosh English help you get there.
Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click the link in the description for your free OET Complete Guide to Writing.
Everything you need to know to pass your OET writing step by step. Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click on the link in the description below.
And also to add to the fact that skimming, obviously you're not actually, as Una said, looking at any given detail about a given part of the text, but you may actually pick up within that skimming some of the writer's opinions or the attitudes of the speakers within the text itself, therefore assisting you in your answers that you're coming up to. And also, if you do actually see these as you're skimming through in a more general purpose, as Una said, you might understand them better when you look at the text as a whole rather than individual sections as well. Of course,
yeah. It gives you a good idea, provides context for the questions and helps you to answer them more easily. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
So we also recommend that, of course, you don't spend too long doing this part of the text itself. So you're looking for 1 minute.
Yeah, skimming is a 1 minute job. Yeah. Don't forget, we need to spend, good bit of time reading the questions in detail. So perhaps we'll move on to that next then. So then once you've done your skimming, you're going to look at the questions. And a lot of the time, the questions and the answer options, you need to look at them in more detail in order to be able to understand them properly. So that means not just skimming them, but actually reading in detail.
Yes, because in this section here, Una, can we actually tell the students right now, are the answer options going to be in the exact words as they've been expressed in the text itself?
No, of course not. Paraphrasing can occur. There can be a word stated in the answer option. Perhaps maybe in the question it says surprised, and then in the actual text, I had an example here. So in the answer it says surprised, but then in the text it says beyond my expectations. So obviously you need to understand that they are both very similar expressions.
So it's not explicitly expressed, but there is the implication there via the wording. So it's important that the students actually pick up on synonyms and paraphrasing to understand the implication of a given word against the answer option.
Exactly. You need to be very careful about this kind of thing.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, well, our students are going to have had lots of practice, familiarizing themselves with lots of vocabulary and making sure that they're able to, assess what a given phrase means in relation to its related word in the answer options. So yeah, you need to read the questions and the answer options in detail, and then you'll be able to go back to identify those opinions throughout the text. For example, as well, it's very important that you actually identify whose opinion or attitude it is you need to find out about.
Precisely as well. Now, the good thing about this part of the OET examination is that obviously the texts are incredibly long. However, you will not be left in the dark into which section you have to look for. Often the OET examination will give you an indicator about what sections you have to look at. For example, in the first paragraph, blah, blah, blah. In the second paragraph, the speaker states blah, 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 blah.
Well, it comes in that kind of order.
In sequential order as well.
Yeah.
So often the first question will appear at the beginning of the text and the last question will appear at the end of the text. So therefore, you won't be searching too much in the dark against this massive chunk of text for the answer. It will be relatively accurate for you to find the information.
That is really helpful for sure, definitely. But yeah, these texts are very opinionated and you need to be able to assess opinionative language as well. So what kind of words can we look for when we want to assess opinion?
So we're going to be looking for adjectives. Adjectives often express an opinion. They can come in many forms. So when you're actually assessing the answer options, look out for what adjectives may appear in that answer option, as well as adjectives which may relate to that answer option in the text itself. However, it is important that you do not look at the adjective by itself. Remember, for this part of the OET examination, you have to look at the details in a more key overarching way. You're not looking at individual details. You're trying to specify what the overall sentence means. So in addition to adjectives as well, you're going to be looking for modal verbs. So modal verbs often express a degree of variability in opinions. For example, should, ought, might, may, as well as more clinical language which you might hear as well. So look for language like that.
Yeah, words like
opinion.
as well, words like probably, possibly,
Yes.
you know, all of these different words that, you know, convey maybe perhaps an element of doubt in the meaning of the expression, optimism or likelihood. We need to be looking out for all these words that indicate
I
these
believe,
things.
I think, it's my opinion that.
That would be easy
Phrases
if
like
you
that.
were just finding those kind of things, wouldn't
Yes.
you? What's the writer's opinion? Well, it says in the text, in my opinion, this is my opinion, you know? But of course, it might not be so explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So don't forget as well to make sure that you're clear, as I said before, about whose opinion it is the answer is referring to. Because it might not just be talking about the writer, but other people that have carried out perhaps similar research, and they are referred to in the text as well.
And
So be
these
careful
people
with
in the
that.
text also might disagree with each other as well, therefore making it more complicated. You're thinking, oh, I've found an opinion which disagrees with this opinion, but whose opinion am I looking for? Make sure you refer to the name, or you might have a pronoun as well that you have to refer to as well.
We said opinion a lot of times there. It's very confusing.
Also, as Una said as well, the opinionated language may be more implied. Instead of saying, I believe, I think, it's my opinion that, it might be too easy. You might hear phrases, for example, such as the beauty of the idea in its simplicity, for example.
very
Phrases like this
good,
which
yeah.
suggest ideas. So make sure you look out for those too.
Very good. Okay, yeah, I like that one. The beauty of the idea. So it's showing that it's my opinion, but you know, I'm not actually saying it like I disagree or I agree. Very good.
The first person perspective has been taken away and put in a more third person general idea.
Yeah, but overall, facts and statistics are not going to help you with these answers.
No.
It's mainly focusing on the overall meaning of what they are trying to communicate that is important in this part of the exam. Okay, so that's talking about our opinion questions and our detailed meaning. So what about recognizing referencing and those phrases that we then have to detect meaning from?
So there are two remaining questions, as we originally pointed out, which actually refer to these themselves. But you are looking for a specific word in a question. For example, you might say, in the fifth paragraph, what does the word it refer to? And you're thinking, it's a pronoun. It's also not a person, so it's looking probably at an object or an idea. So you're thinking, how do I find that? So you're looking for something that refers to that it in the statement, matching the questions, the answer options itself. So you're referencing precise language there. So once again, you're going to look at that pronoun, what the answer options are, look in the relevant paragraphs, find similar language with the answer options, and then locate what that pronoun is referring to in the text. Measure up the answer and think, okay, I think it's that one based on my own reading.
Very good. And then whenever it comes to looking at phrases, which you have to say what they are referring to, or even just apply what their meaning is, it's important for you to go through a process. So really looking at the language around that phrase and looking at the context of which it is in.
Yeah.
So how can we do this? Well, we can simply think about parts of the speech. Okay, so look at parts of the speech. Is it a noun, an adjective? You know, what is the function of that speech? What do you think it is bringing to the sentence? Is it a subject? Is it an object? Okay, is it an adverb? These are all things we need to be thinking about when we look at that phrase or that word. Also, ask yourself, is it expressing a negative or a positive? Okay, that, or a neutral idea, that is something that could also help you really try and understand the meaning of
so
that
the
phrase.
connotation is also highly important as well.
Definitely.
So obviously you may have an understanding what this idiomatic phrase, because they are idiomatic in their meaning, means generally. You think, okay, that's great if you do know the general meaning, but also don't forget you're referencing to what it refers to in the text as well, which does require some more skills overall.
Yes, definitely. So think about the parts of the speech and the connotation, and are they expressing a negative or positive idea? Another thing that you can really look out for when trying to detect the meaning of these phrases is looking for connectors, of course. Our connectors and our transition words are really helpful to help us understand the meaning between sentences.
And the flow,
meaning between clauses.
And the flow of an idea, the flow of an argument as well. So as Una pointed out, some of these connectors will appear mid-sentence, but also a lot of them will also appear at the beginning of a sentence, therefore suggesting a switch, a contrasting idea between the previous sentence, or maybe a continuation of an idea. So for example, if you see a sentence beginning with but, you think, oh, okay, there's a contrasting idea coming here as well. And I found some of the language which relates to one of the answer options previously, but this connector here may suggest something else. So now I need to look around about what the information is being said.
Exactly. So look out for your connectors and transition words. They are really helpful in order to really understand the meaning of that sentence or that phrase that you are having to.
And if you're having any troubles with connectors, well, that's where I suggest you actually brush up on your knowledge of connectors and also how they're applied in given contexts as well.
Yeah, and of course that's really important, and that's just a general reading tip in general.
Yes.
So as you're reading through anything that you're reading, whether it be your OET specific mock exams, or you're looking at medical journals, or even just novels or something that you read that's enjoyable in order to improve your reading skills, make sure that you're actively reading it. So looking at the relationships between sentences, why one sentence comes after another, why a clause is connected to another clause. Really actively read and assess these things as you go along. Don't just simply read things and think that it's all, you're going to get something out of it.
It's just not going to seep in.
Of course, it's still beneficial, but we need to be actively reading and asking ourselves, do we really understand, the way in which it was written in order for it to benefit us for these kind of tasks. So look out for those connectors. And of course, spending time on connectors is useful for your reading, and it's also super beneficial for whenever you're writing yourself, and you actually have to use connectors
and speaking and listening for everything. They're actually incredibly useful.
So that's never a waste of time. These words are very important as well in your letters when you're writing for your OET exam, so always beneficial and never a waste of time.
So of course it's incredibly useful for you to actually do this sort of studies with OET material, but of course you could benefit from doing this exercise even more beneficially by actually doing some outside reading in general linguistic reading materials. Now, if you keep them medical, that's obviously fantastic because it is semi-relevant, but you might think, oh my goodness, I am done with this medical reading today. I want to read something a bit more lighthearted, for example, an interest you may have. All is relevant, but the important part is that you are obviously reading around the topic. You're practicing these soft skills, for example, looking for attitude, looking for opinion, expressing ideas, looking at reference points. What does it mean? What does a given phrase mean in context? You might come across a new idiomatic phrase and you think, I have no idea what that means. I'm going to read around that sentence and go, all right, now I think I know what it means via the context. Then you could obviously look it up in the dictionary and go, was I right? Was I wrong? If you were right, fantastic. You have practiced some of the skills you need to derive a meaning via context in this OET examination.
That's a really good tip as well. When you're reading, test yourself, test your abilities. Don't just go, if you don't know a word or you don't know a phrase, don't just go straight to Google, Give yourself the skills and practice those skills that you're going to need if you don't know the word in the exam.
If only we had the Google machine in the exam.
Oh no Google machine in the exam. So of course, really work on building up those skills to be able to deduct meaning from context. And we have a wonderful blog article about that here at Swoosh English, deducting meaning. So you can have a look at that on our website, swooshenglish.com.
As well as a variety of other blogs that we have on every section of the exam, including blogs on section C of the reading exam and sections A and B as well. So look into them.
Definitely, as well as a whole guide in relation to reading for the OET exam. So shall we just give some of these resources then that are really beneficial for students to go away and read in preparation for Part C?
So of course we recommend medical journals, websites and newspaper articles. A few examples of those would be the British Medical Journal and the ABC health newsletter as well. Of course, other varieties. There's also a lot of other texts you can read, for example, as well, including TED Talks, which are a great resource for listening and reading. And of course, you can keep the medical in your scope as well.
Yeah, definitely. All these things are really beneficial. So make sure that you are spending a lot of time reading in outside of just doing the mock exams as well. Okay, so any other tips then for reading that we want to give our students today?
Remain confident. Practice, and also put into practice the active learning skills that we have referenced today as well.
Work on your vocabulary. I say this every time. Get a vocabulary journal. Make sure you're writing down those words that you come across that you haven't seen before. Write their definitions, write their synonyms, and even look up on the Google machine how they're pronounced. And then that can benefit you if you want to use them in your speaking.
Great tip.
Or if you hear them, maybe your invigilator says one of these words and you're like, what's that pronunciation? But actually, you know the words, you just don't know the pronunciation.
All very useful tips.
Yeah. Okay. So, is that it for us then today?
I think that'll bring the podcast to a natural close. So
I think we've said everything, haven't we?
All right. So
Yes.
let's not overload you with information. We really hope that you found this OET podcast episode incredibly useful today, and you can put some of these skills into practice right away by practicing for your OET Part C examination task by doing your general reading, practicing your skills, and maybe even if you're looking for extra assistance, coming to us at Swoosh English for even more assistance for your OET exam. So thanks a lot for watching today. Good luck and hope to see you again.
Bye, guys.
Bye.